Alright, so now that we've gotten our lash tabbing diagramming done, okay, we're going to go ahead and do the lab that goes along with this, so the hands-on part to this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my journal to give me a white page, just so that way you guys can have a better view here on the camera. Alright, so with our lash tabbing again, we are using these particular lash tabs on this particular tray on Wednesday when you do it on yourself. There are 20 tabs here, so 10 for the right eye and 10 for the left eye. We're going to put this to the side, okay? But what I want you to notice before we move this to the side, I want you to pay attention here on your tray. I know these are, if you don't cover these or put them in a case or a protective container or something of the sort, your lashes will come off and they will get bent. So you always want to make sure to protect your lashes. These typically come in a little box or container or have a plastic covering. You always want to keep these trays inside those packagings until you're ready to use them or throw them away, okay? All right. So if you pay attention to each individual lash cluster, okay, 4, 5, 6, etc., you can see, and as we were talking about in our diagramming, okay, that the flare here are the points at the tip, the corners. See how it creates the V shape where we had drawn the little dot, the little circle in V shape? That is what we want to pay attention to. Here, on this top corner where you see the glue where the lash cluster is stuck to the tray, these little bulbs of glue at the tip of the flare, they're evenly spaced out and they're straight, okay? So we're going to create that by focusing on the tip of our flare of our individual clusters, okay? So we're going to create this here on our stick card. So what I would do, and I didn't get a chance to do it for you this go around because of how everything was, but before Pocket Pickup. But, okay, you want to, if you can, laminate this card and keep it there. That way you don't, it doesn't get wet or damaged. It has a little bit of a nice coating to it, but only on the front side, the top side. So this particular, okay, card, you want to practice for speed, timing yourself on each individual row. Like I said in the previous video, on this particular lash, a strip lash, it has 22 clusters. And the clusters you can see right here at the base of the band of the lash. You can see the cluster sections there. So that has 22. This has 20. So if you were to use one whole line on one line on the stick card, it works just perfect. Okay, just 2 more and then just work out your time from there. So these are great to practice with. As far as for the glue, this glue that came with it is going to give you a good amount of practice. It's double-sided sticky tape, but if you run out of it, you can go to a arts and crafts supply store, like a scrapbooking store even, and get the really thin double-sided stick tape. And if you can't get the thin one, you can get the thick one and just carefully and gently peel it off. Again, that's why it's better if you have this laminated, because you can peel the tape off and no big deal. You don't have to have this fancy, more expensive tape. You can have the regular double-sided Scotch tape, and that works just fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, okay, we're going to come in, and I can't zoom in the camera any just simply because it's on a particular stand, so I apologize. So we're going to go ahead and take our tape. Okay, the top layer, the first layer of the tape is just a plastic protective tape. So, and it's going to take you just a second to find one layer of tape. And I want you to take the tape and put it right over that square, or that rectangle. And you might need to, I'm going to pull the card out of the camera view here for a second. And as long as the tape is on, the card in a straight line. It's okay if it's a little bit high or a little bit low, but just make sure it's nice and straight. So I don't know if you can see it. You can see it, the reflection of the light there. Here's my tape, okay? So don't manhandle the tape too much because the oils on your hands will, it won't be sticky anymore, okay? You'll notice that there's another protective layer of tape over the top. So each time there's a layer of protective tape, plastic, and then it's the tape, the double-sided sticky tape, okay? So you don't have to worry about it, the stickiness going away. Okay, so we're going to do, and I previously forgot to say that you need scissors with this one. So we're going to cut our, and I should be doing this with regular scissors so I don't dull my working scissors. Okay, this lash, let's put it to the side because we're going to be using it at a later time. But we're going to go ahead and work off of this. So we're going to make lash tabs. Let's say that you need tabs, but you don't have any of these. So you take a strip lash and you cut it up to make your lashes, your lash tabs. So, okay, has a little bit of stick, but not too crazy much. But each individual cluster here, you're going to cut, okay? Let me grab my scissors, I apologize, I dropped them. Okay. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut off the first cluster. And I might have to really get in there. Let me see here. Okay, so put that to the side. I'm going to grab my lash. Here's my first cluster, okay? Then I'm going to grab, and I'm going to have to grab with my fingers because it's too flimsy with the tweezer. I'm going to cut my second tab. And when you cut, you want to make sure that you don't cut the hair fibers. You want to cut in between. Now you'll notice that when you're cutting from the strip lash, you're going to get a T with the band. My scissors are a little bit old and I've used them a whole lot, so the blade is not very sharp. It's pretty dull actually. So I can't, with these scissors, get a really nice clean cut on both sides of the tabs. So keep that in mind if you are getting frustrated that you have the band still showing up. Use just a scissor, okay? Blame it on the scissor. Alright, so you're going to continue by taking the entire strip lash apart, okay? So you should have, it depends on what lash you use, you should have an average about 20 lash clusters, which is about an average of, depending on what kind of flare it has, but it's about an average of, if it's a flare type that it's made out of, it has an average about 20 lash clusters to make the strip, okay? So go ahead and cut all of those. And then what you want to do, let me cut just one more, just give me one more layer on here. Okay. All right. So whenever you're coming in and doing this, you want to make sure not to blow all over this, just so that way that this doesn't blow all over the place. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. You want to, okay, make sure you're sitting correctly. You're in a nice, comfortable position. There's two ways to practice this. With the stick card, reading in a proper direction, you're taking the lash tabs and you're working from right to left, left to right, right to left, left to right. Or you put the stick card per se upside down. If you're working on practicing on yourself as if you're bringing this up to your eye, then you can work right to left, left to right in this manner, okay? So again, holding with the flare going out that direction away from you, or with the flare towards you as if you're working on a client. Either way, either direction is just fine. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. And there go my fingers. Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties here. I had to plug in my speaker headphones here. Okay, so we're going to do as we did with our lash diagram, doing our spacing first, and then coming in on the second row doing our 5, 5, 2 layers. Okay, keeping in mind that with these lashes, if you don't have sharp scissors, you have the T section. Don't worry about that. So you're going to come in and you're going to push the lash down using the back side of your tweezer. Okay, and I did not leave a little space. Remember to keep leaving a little bit of the space on the very corner end. Now we want to focus on the flare that we have at the base, just like these right here. And you can also have this strip lash if you didn't do all of them, or you can have the other lash that you have as a, per se, example of what the flare should look like. The spacing that you have on the band section of the lash cluster should be equally spaced out. Okay, one thing to look for, so coming in, pushing it down, making sure that your base of your, or the tip of your flare touches, creating that little V shape in between. Okay, taking your next lash tab, pushing down, making sure it's evenly spaced. Whoops. And a lot of times when you're doing this, if you drop a lash tab, it's kind of hard to find it afterwards, so it's lost. And definitely never pick any up off of the floor, or pick them off of clothing and put them on your client's face, because that is absolutely unsanitary. Okay, so the little bit of the double-sided stick, oops, will help these lashes stick on. I say that as I'm struggling to get this one to stick. There we go. Okay, so you're going to continue this pattern. Now, you'll notice on this last one, and maybe you can't see it very well, but there's like two little fibers that are extra curled, because they kind of, I guess that when I pulled them or cut them, I messed them up. Sometimes that will happen, and those are not good lashes to use. It's not worth your entire service, so you just want to take those and just toss them or leave them in the tray and don't use them, okay? So you're going to continue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So continue with the rest of your lash tabbings all the way through practicing your spacing, okay? I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these, and then I'm going to show you how it is that we can continue on our next line to practice our 10 lash technique. 5, and then I'm going to come in between and do 5, and then do 1 on either corner. Alright, so now you can see I've added a few here. Be careful when you do cut. I did cut and then I totally cut one and it fell apart, but no worries. So you can practice your spacing. Once you got your spacing down, then you want to practice your timing. Now the reason why I said save this is because you can come back in and you can push your lash tabs back on here to help preserve and save this. You can even add a double stick tape onto your little tray, and then you can continue practicing with these same lash tabs. These are still good for practice. Once you kind of manhandle and cut these up, they're not good necessarily for application on a person, but you can use it on a mannequin, but not on a person, okay? But you can definitely save it to practice with at a later time, okay? All right, so, and one thing I want to point out, and I kind of overlooked, I wasn't paying attention, it says here use from the bottom, okay? So, you want to start at the bottom, and I'll tell you why. Because you have these long flares, if I were to come in and put my tape, the flare's in the way. So if you work from the bottom to the top, it's a lot easier than if you work from the top to the bottom. You can do either way, but it's suggested to work from the bottom, okay? And then, yes, this would be from, not form. Use form the bottom. But, all right. So I went and put my tape here. So now we're going to, now that I've practiced my spacing and I'm good at my spacing, and guys, if you do it once, you're not a pro at it, okay? You have to practice, practice, practice. You practice like you play like you practice, okay? So perform, play, same difference, okay? So you definitely want to do it more than once. You want to go home while you're hanging out, chilling, watching TV, whatnot. You want to have this out. You want to be practicing, okay? Because sure, it's like, oh, okay, this is done. We're practicing on paper. But trust me, it's the movements and manipulations, the holding, the manipulating, the lashes, the squeezing the tweezers, going from here to here to here to here. Is this practice and this motion of the movement of the hand that is going to help you in time be better and faster as you're doing it on a person, okay? So practice several times your spacing. Once you got your spacing down, then practice and time yourself. Take your 20 your 20 lash tabs, individual lash tabs, and then count or time yourself how long does it take you to do one full set with this precise spacing in between. And then focus on your position between each one of your lash tabs. Just try and see if you can eventually get it as precise as this strip lash here. Okay. All right, so then from there, your next practice is going to be your 10 lash or 10 cluster technique, okay, for your enhancement. So here I have 5 for my red, remember, 5 for my green row, our layer, and then 2 were my blues, okay, on the corners. So I'm going to come in, pretend this is my eye, middle, this is the nose, this is the outer corner, this is the middle, okay. So I'm going to leave the little orange square where I don't want any lashes. So I'm going to put down my first tab. Okay, have my flares touching. Here's my second tab. Here's my third. Here's my fourth. And here's my fifth. Okay. That's my first layer, my red layer. Once I'm here with my glue, per se, if I was using glue, this first tab is dry. So I'm going to come in, my green layer, my second layer, I'm going to go right in between. Then my second tab for that layer. And the reason why I want to use the back part of my tweezer to push down my tab is because if I use the tip and there's glue on here, when I go to grab my next tab or my lash and I put it down, it's going to get stuck. So that's you're kind of working against yourself if you were to use the tip. Okay. So, oops. Oh man, I made that a little crooked. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it. Okay, so there's my second row. That's really bothering me because I really made that one crooked, but let me see if I can, without messing it up too much. No. And then my last two, I'm going to use on the very edge, before I get to my little orange square, I'm going to add my last tab, my blue, to blend. Okay, it'll stick down. And then my blue on the middle or center corner to blend as well. Okay? So once you get your 3-layer technique down, the first time you want to practice multiple times. Now let's say you have a bunch of these you get at the dollar store. Take a day and cut them all up, okay? And then you can put them on a little tray or a little lid of something or a little container, and then just have them so you can practice, okay? You can, save them, put double-sided sticky tape and then tape them on top of that tape. That works as well. So from here, this one first time you did it, okay, I got the technique down. So now continue to practice up the line. You can load your card with tape, preloaded, and then you can continue from here. You can take them up and up and up, and then you can just continue working up the card. Practice on doing your 3-layer technique. Once you've gotten the technique down, then practice on timing yourself. How fast can you go from corner to center of the 10 lash cluster technique and do perfect spacing, okay? And when I say perfect, I mean perfect, okay? Kind of like what you see in the perfection of the spacing in here. Okay, so that takes a little bit of practice. So of course, not practicing just once or twice, but continuous practice of the technique should this be something that interests you. So starting again from the bottom of the card, working way to the top, and then not just practicing from the right to the left, but also from left to right, because that also is a different technique as far as muscle manipulation and even the way you hold your tweezers. Okay, so once you do that, time yourself. Okay, and don't just time yourself for one eye, because no client's going to come in for one eye. You got to do 20 lashes. So 10 from right to middle, and then 10 from left to middle. That's a set of eyes. Okay, and there you have it. That's what we have for you today. Continue practicing. If you have any questions, let me know. But hopefully that is something that helps you with your lash tabbing.